This is the sixth and final part of the series of videos about Great Western Railway Chippenham Station. And so here we are inside Trainz, a new era, just with a blank ground here, just a new route in construction. And over here, of course, is the flyouts for the different components. And this is now the name of the model, which is to all intents and purposes finished. So let's bring it up. Here we are, and this is based upon the plans which I've been working on, but working from rather, but which have caused quite a few problems for me in a number of ways. I'm just looking here. I think even looking at this, yeah, there's still an issue with inside out meshes here, so I've just got to resolve that, but that won't make any difference to the overall final model, which should be out within a week. So this is not Chippenham Station, that's what I should say. After a brief email chat with some members of the couple of members of the Broad Gauge Society, it became clear that this was probably, although it's in the network's rail archive, it was probably a projected station replacement for Chippenham after the 1857-58 branch down to Weymouth was Great Western Railway branch down to Weymouth was introduced, was completed, because the plans show a arrival platform, or a platform where the trains from London would have arrived, heading on this way to Bristol, and from Bristol heading off to London here. You've got a strange arrangement of platforms and of tracks, because in the middle, and if we zoom in, I'll explain what this is, this little black thing is, in a minute. You've got a bay here which appears to be for passenger. Oops, I've just added another one on top, there we are. A bay, and then we've got a through line, and we've got another bay over here. Now these bays would have been facing towards Bristol and Weymouth, so that's the supposition. In fact, this wasn't built. The actual rebuild of the original station was very limited, and all of these sort of grandiose plans were never adopted. But nevertheless, having spent so long building the station, I didn't want to just chuck it away, so I'm going to release it, and I'm releasing it as a Great Western broad gauge intermediate station. So a substantial station where there would be a junction leading to other routes, but on the main line between Bristol and London. So I've actually pruned some of the detail out, and some of the things which I'm not including are a lot of the minor detail along the for the offices on this. So there was a number of items there, all of which really you can add using some of the models already available on the download station to fill up the platform. So the basic structure is there. I haven't labelled the offices either, but as you can see, it was quite an extensive station inside with this double overall roof, which once you get the effect, and thank you, there's an email from somebody talking about Homer. Once you get the effect of the overall roof, I think it's really quite successful. I've just noticed there's a little piece I need to just tidy up there. That doesn't look quite finished. I've got a gap. There shouldn't be a gap there. I've just got to stretch a little mesh there. So a couple of minor tweaks just to finish it off. But otherwise, it's pretty much as shown on the plans. There are these odd end screens, which are not so prominent at this end, but oops, but at the far end, let's just try and get back to it there. You can see, instead of it just being 2 panels, there are 4 panels making up the screens, and these protect the passengers from the worst of the elements, I think. The closing screen wall on the far side the downside. This realistically was as long as I could extend it, and it reflects the plans, although it is short of the overall length of the station. But there are plans which show gaps like this at each end of the station, so I'm happy enough to leave that. And I've simplified a lot of the roof structure simply because it would have been an enormous model to load into Trainz. Okay, so this is not Chippenham Station. This is going to be Great Western Broad Gauge Intermediate Station, is how I will release it. And it's a piece of fixed track. I experimented trying to make it an actual station and got into all sorts of difficulties, because you've basically got two stations or two platforms back to back here, and you've got two platforms both serving the same line here. So having spent a long time and a lot of effort trying to get it sorted, I surrendered. I abandoned it. And I also removed, there was a short piece of roofing just here between these two sets of offices, which also I've removed because it just looked ridiculous, just an odd little piece there. I don't quite know what that was intended for. There was nothing really. These platforms are not wide enough for passenger services. This is where there's a through road that goes right through the station and is not served by any platforms apart from these two pieces. But you'll see here that the platforms have the rounded ends of those very early Great Western stations. Okay, so how do you use it? Well, it's fixed track, and to go with it, because the platform height is only 3 foot, I've created a single track invisible station, and that's it there. And this will be released with this intermediate broad gauge station. So the first thing I want to do though is I'm just going to take that away. I'm going to go into layers. Now if you don't have a version of Trainz that has layers, this is going to make the life a lot more difficult for you, this is the only way I've found that I could really sort this out, and I have to use the layers option. So first of all, I create a layer, and I'm going to call it station building. There we are, station building. Okay, and that's where this is going to be, and let's just see if it's there. No, it's not there, so we're going to move this. Where am I selecting? Let's just delete that, go back to the layer. I've got station building selected, and put one in. No, that's the wrong one, that's the invisible station again. It's this one up here. There we are, and let's just make sure, yep, there it is. It's on the station building layer. So when you're doing this, you will need to use the layers option. If you don't use it very much at the moment, it's worth experimenting with it just to get used to it. But if you have ever used a vector drawing program, then you'll be very familiar with the use of, or even the Photoshop or something like that, PaintShop Pro. You'll be very used to using layers. It's not complicated. So once you've got that, your station building in position wherever you want it to be, I would lock it on its own layer, and then I go back to the root layer, or create another layer if you wish, and bring in the invisible station. Let's put it over here, and let's zoom in on that, and you'll see there it's just a red line indicating the center line of the track, a grey surveyor only square, a rectangle, which shows where the passengers will appear, and the passengers are the same passenger set as I use on my broad gauge carriages. So now we can move it about, and the reason why I'm doing this is because when I tried to do this without using layers, in other words all on the same layer, then I ended up moving the main station constantly. I was never able to get anything sorted out. So this is my solution to this. I tried various ways of putting the station in, using as an attachment to the station building, adding the passengers to it in that way, but none of it was really successful. So now because the station building, this main building is locked in place on that other layer, I can now select this, and you want to move it so that it's directly on the black line. And if you if you want to come straight down onto it. Now obviously this station building is just as it appears in when you click onto it, and what I mean in there is that the angle at which it's set, so whichever angle you set it at, rotated around the ground, you obviously have to do that for the invisible station itself. If it's too far up that way, if you want your passengers down there, I haven't made this particularly long. This let's just try and move that up a bit. You can see with this lattice work of nearly there. Let's go down. Some of those passengers look a bit too close. So there we are. I may increase. That is actually it's beyond the platform level, so I may. Oh, they're okay, I think. Yeah, sticking over a bit, Mr. Oxo and Mr. whatever it is, Mr. Sunlight Soap. But there we are. So this is using John Whelan's Victorian passengers, the 1890 set, something like that. So 50 years later than we really want, but needs must. I'm not going to make another passenger set, believe me. I'm not going to make a passenger set, having never made one anyway. So now let's add some more passengers. Another station over here, and let's zoom in. Oop. Diving about a bit quick. Let's have a look. Go down, come up. Yes, I think I might have to move the passengers back a little bit before I release it. You see there's a dot there as well. That's actually the centre line of the sort of station platform, that particular platform. So that's the up platform rather. And then we've got a couple of bay platforms here. So what you can do, that's still that centre point, by the way, that little black dot just disappears. It's covered over when you add track. I've got the two lines here for the bays. So if you want to, you don't have to have station. I mean, those two platforms served for passengers might be enough for you if you just want the bays for storing vehicles or whatever, carriage trucks, luggage vans, empty carriages, whatever, all the sort of things that happened in the early railways. I'm still toying with the idea of a hand shunting, and I've sort of played around with that idea for some time but never really got anywhere. So there we are, and then we want one more. This time we want to rotate it because it's going to serve the other. Oops, a bit too much. 180. There we are, that was that down the bottom there. And bring this in. So zoom in. Let's try and get it so that it's reasonably. There we are, move them back, and you'll see that they're. That's lining up okay. That's good. Now the reason why I've done this is because the platforms on these early Great Western stations was only about 3 foot high, and even that was higher than some of the platforms of the very first stations. Okay, so having done that, what we can then do is go to our track, and I seem to be getting emails left, right and centre here. So, and because I want to connect into the station building, these short lengths of fixed track which I've provided here, I'm going to unlock it, and I've got my broad gauge procedural track, so it will form junctions automatically, and that was fun making that. So let's go into our station. Let's drop down. Oops, not quite as much as that. Oh dear, getting carried away here. So our procedural should connect up here. There we are. And whoops, zooming around like a crazy thing, and then there we go. And at the other end, just do the same thing. So you can see where I'm going with this. These short lengths of fixed track are just there to help you as a guide. And although I try to get my stations to appear automatically as elements that loaded, that were attached within the station itself, I wasn't able to do that, so I just left them. Oops, no, we'll not have that, thank you. Just go to there for the moment. So although this takes a few minutes, worth the effort. I thought it's worth showing you the sort of thing I have in, the way I've sort of finally tried to conquer this very awkward station. Is that connected? I'm not sure that it has. No. This is something I found with fixed track. Maybe just because it's my fixed track. But sometimes you can only connect up, or it may be due to my procedural track there. Is that fixed? No, it's not fixing. I remember now. Put an attachment point in there and then bring another one forward. It'll connect up and then just delete the spline point. There we are. So that gives us two of our through lines. So now just looking at it through the roof, let's connect up the third one from there to there, and from there to there. There we are. And then we've got, peering through the roof, we've got the bays to sort out. I'm just looking there. So that's from there to there, from there to there, and then the ends of the bays. We'll just zoom in a bit. There we are. From here. Well, I've not got a fixed position for that, so really you've just got to lay it by eye. And let's do the other bay. So this attachment point here at the bottom, this one is the end of the station, end of that invisible station. Try and make that reasonably straightforward. There we are. And these sort of, I've never been able to sort these out. To always be at the correct distance. At meeting points, the attachment points, the procedural track just cannot handle Brunel's brilliant broad gauge. Okay, so that gives us a station with 3 lines. The centre line doesn't have any platform service, but you've got the main line there from London, and if we add another track, that's on its way to Bristol or wherever you like. And then this one obviously is from Bristol, and I suppose it sort of came along. Let's just make sure it doesn't join up with that. And of course the 6-foot gap between running lines, straighten that up. is of course narrower than the gauge of the track, so that always gives you a funny look to it. Well, I've skewed that round quite sharp. There you go. But you'll get the idea, and then you can do what you like. Any point work in here. You can add in the connections to the bays. Junction showing in red because it's got problems. There we are. And if you want to bring the other bay platform in, I'm not quite sure how the track was meant to be, but got the centre one there. Not quite sure where you bring that into. I suppose you could bring it to here. And let's try and tidy that up a bit. It looks a bit of a mess. That looks a bit better. Well, that's just me fiddling about with it here. How you utilise those 5 lines purely up to you, but obviously the two main platforms are this one here and this one here, and this bit are the bay servicing the bay. So I haven't put passengers in on both sides of this line here. What else? Well, because there are no vehicle ramps up for loading carriage trucks or things like that, and there's none indicated on the plan, I think by the time this station was developed, they'd moved the loading of carriage trucks and parcels, luggage vans to the goods or depot or outside of the station, or what was proposed to be a station. But overall, I think the effect is very sort of 1840s, 1850s, and some of the things which we would normally expect as part of a station are different, and some things are included which we wouldn't expect to see in a station. So what about what does it look like with train on it? So there's Aeolus, and I think I've got a tender. There we are. Let's just stick a fairly basic tender, and then these are GWR broad gauge. These are two new carriages which I'm going to be releasing alongside with this station. So just have a bit of a look. That's a first class, 6-wheel first class in the original livery, and a 6-wheeled second class also in the original livery, and these will take 32 passengers in first class, and you can see it's the 1890 set that I'm using. Okay, so that's filled up, and the second class will take 40, not only because you have a smaller seat, but I presume it's because second class passengers didn't eat quite as well as first class, so therefore they were slightly slimmer, and you can have up to 4 luggage loads on the roof, and those will be part of the CDP for that. And obviously they're all the same. I've not tried to make any great changes in there, but you can see they're all packed in there. So that's those are very much fitting for 1838, 1840, 1850, and of course Aeolus as well. So there we are. That's a not Chippenham station, and I shall be releasing that. It's now, what's the day, the 15th of August, so I would say within a week to 10 days it will be available on my website. I'm not going to be attempting another station just yet, but I will be making another station. I've got plans, reliable plans, which tie up with the known drawings of the station. So I've got the plans of Slough, which was a classic Brunel single-sided station. I've got to say that carefully. And with an arrival section and a departure section, and I'm hoping against hope that that will be a somewhat more straightforward station to recreate, but it's again another early station that I'd like to do. I'm just looking around here. There's a few other little mesh tweaks that might need a bit of sorting out, and I think I definitely need to move the passengers back from the edge. I mean, you know, mind the gap is one thing, but the old yellow line keeping you back from the edge didn't exist back then, but even so, that is a little bit too tight for comfort there. You can see, by the way, that these the 7-foot gauge carriages fit precisely, and this is what eventually persuaded me that this was correctly designed as a GWR station, because I've used the plans, the drawings from the Broad Gauge Society's datasheet to recreate these two, and I hadn't compared them with this station until I'd got this far, and then I put them on the station, and if you look there at the steps, they are within a gnat's whisker of the edge of the platform. They're just missing it. And if we were to take Aeolus forward, so let's do that. Let's take Aeolus forward. Now I'm just still doing this in Surveyor. I'm not going to go into driver, but let's move it, jump it forward. Ooh, there we are. Come on, let's go to that end and have a look. So there's not much more track left for old Aeolus. So let's, and I can't add any more now because I'll just get an error beep. So if I just move, come along. No, it won't let me. But there's a spark arrestor on Aeolus on the chimney, and it's the distance between that and this roof is exact. There's a good gap, and just what you'd expect for a chimney. If we were to take another broad gauge locomotive, let's have a look at Corsair. It's a saddle tank. Let's put him on the put her, there we are, and you'll see if I just lower this a bit. Actually, let's turn around. That gives you, we're almost at the exact height. There we are. It's just going to clear just nicely. That's exactly what that's designed to do, is to just clear. So once I got models like this that I've made in the past, I actually made this one with Ricky many moons ago, and so this one now fits. It fitted straight away. So you can see the station itself is of the correct design. So there we are. So it's not Chippenham station, but it is a very substantial station, much bigger than the rebuild, the 1858-59 rebuild. Much more substantial. Today, these station offices are still extant and pretty much as they are here. Although, as I mentioned in a previous video, I've added the steps because this is now the level of the road is at the bottom of the door. But there's no way you can really do that in Trainz without completely messing up all the texture, all the landscape. So I've just added steps in there. That was my fudge for that. Those chimneys look ridiculous. So and those are listed buildings now, preserved listed buildings. But everything else, this was never built. It was a much more modest structure with just 2 running lines and then a goods line and an overall and some sort of connecting bridgeway. And you'll notice here there is no footbridge, and I've deliberately not included that because, first of all, the plans that I had indicated that didn't fit. It didn't fit with these plans, and the other thing is, of course, is that these early stations that rarely had a footbridge, and passengers simply crossed the track to get to the trains because they were so relatively few and far between. So it's still like the days of the old horse-drawn posting carriages, that sort of thing. So there we are, Great Western broad gauge intermediate station. available later in the month, along with those 2 carriages and the invisible station to match up with it. So I hope you enjoyed this video. I'm glad to have got to the end of this particular project, because it has proved to be quite challenging in so many ways. You always think you can rely on plans, and I did rely on the plans, and they led me up the garden path well and truly. So I've tried to retrieve something from them which will be of interest to those who want to recreate the spirit, if not the exactness, of the Great Western Railway. And my next model will be a standard gauge Great Western vehicle. I'm going to have a go at the steam rail motor. Number 93 is preserved at Didcot, and so that's the one I'm thinking of doing next. But I will come back and do another station as well, as I say, Slough. So as I say, I hope you enjoyed the video. If you have, please give me a thumbs up. Please do subscribe if you haven't already. Please leave comments if you wish, suggestions, criticisms, whatever. All welcome. And see you at the next video.